1983. It was long, long ago. In a galaxy right here now. Well, not now, but same place. And I was a mere 9 years old and went to see a little movie called Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And I had previously, the year before, seen E.T., which I fell in love with, was very obsessed with E.T., had lots of E.T. toys around my house. So when I went to a movie where they gave me living teddy bears and baby teddy bears, I was hooked. I had previously seen Empire Strikes Back. I was like 6 when that came out, and I think I was a little too young to really know what was going on. Plus, that's like, to me, it's always been the scary one, because that's when Luke's hand gets cut off, and there's the Wampa, which is the the guy in Hoth, if
That's
you don't
right.
know his name.
Big scary guy.
Yeah, and it doesn't end on a happy note because everyone gets captured and stuff.
Han Solo, he gets
and I was
frozen.
Not a huge fan of that. So when I saw I remember seeing commercials, I guess, on TV for the Ewoks being on there. They had a song. I mean, it was like, it really hooked me in. So that was when my Star Wars fandom was born. You were a little bit older than me.
Yeah, I was turning 13 that year, but it was like the perfect age, and that was also my favorite movie. I do remember seeing Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back in theaters when they first came out, but it really wasn't until The Return of the Jedi that was the one that was just perfect for me, because as you said, it has the Ewoks. They filmed parts of it in the Redwood National Forest, so that was a real good time.
I feel like most people say that Empire Strikes Back is the best.
They say that,
or their
and
favorite.
they're probably right, but it just depends on when and where you grew up. And
Yeah.
for me, it was Return of the Jedi. And I guess it was for
And
you
me too. So, I mean, when we first heard that they were doing a Star Wars land, of course, I mean, I'm not such a fan that I have, everybody's backstories and planets and all the alien races memorized.
Me neither.
I did watch the prequels when they came out. They are not the best received of the movies. But what's fun about that is I'm trying to think of another film franchise where you can grow up with it, and then as an adult, you can have children, if you have children, and there's new movies for them. And that is why I think Star Wars is such a huge fandom, and people take it so seriously, because I know, my son Christian grew up with the prequels, and he kind of likes them because that's what he grew up with.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And that's okay, because we all had to come from some starting point with the Star Wars universe, and I think that speaks to how vast the backstories are. And of course, there's been a million books written, some of which are canon, some of which I guess are not now canon, because when Disney took over, they kind of
I have no idea
mixed
about
some
those.
of those things. I'm not sure on the details on that, but anyway, there's a backstory for everything.
A lot of those. There's the
every
animated
place.
series that they've done, a couple of which, including the Clone Wars. And
So
you go ahead.
So I was just, getting to, so when they announced Star Wars Land, I think most of the world or the country was thinking that it would be a familiar story
Right.
or place.
Because every attraction that Disney has done before with Star Wars has been set in a place that's familiar, whether it be Tatooine or on Endor.
Yeah, and I mean,
the
that's
planet
why
of Endor.
Hollywood Studios, which, was MGM when it started, is such a unique place. I mean, even today, their Star Tours, the little mini Endor forest that you walk through, when you get to the back of it, has it looks like a set, because
That's right.
was the original theming of the park. So they've never really changed that. I don't know if there are plans to do that in the future. I have no idea what they're going to do with Star Tours now that Galaxy's Edge is open. But anyway, leading into that, we first heard about the fact that Star Wars was going to exist, although it was teased in the 2013 Expo.
Right. Well, what was the name of that?
That was when you went into that place where they had like the desk for the Avatar land, but we didn't know what it was, and you could find the clues. And
Orange
then
Harvest.
There was crates that were stamped Orange Harvest in the Star Wars font.
That's right.
And it was confusing because orange in it, led people to think like, oh, is there some weird orange bird thing? And, is it Walt Disney World? Everyone thought, I think back then, that it was only Walt Disney World. No one, I think, until the official announcement.
I don't remember thinking anything.
Did,
maybe it was a Horizons reference with l'orange.
Yeah,
scent or
I
anything.
think that's what I first thought when we first walked through that display. But then in 2015, they made the official announcement
at the 2015 Expo, yes,
of the land, and that they said it was going to be in both parks then, right?
I believe so, yes.
So that was like a shocker for a lot of people because they're like, where is that going to go?
Especially at Disneyland, which is a very small, tight park.
Yes.
And there were rumors that it would go in the area where the Autopia and the Interventions is.
That's right.
And then it turns out it was not there at all.
We lost our goats.
That's right. The Big Thunder Ranch and basically the area behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and all the way around the rivers of America to Critter Country.
Yeah. So. And you're the only one that's been there. We'll get into that in a minute, the Disneyland version.
Right. I just got back from there. From Batuu in California when I went to the expo.
Batuu in 2 different places. How is that possible?
I'm sure a lot of people have by now.
That's true, but not me.
That's okay.
Anyway, it was, similar to our feelings. Well, I guess you grew up in Disneyland too, so you probably had the same feelings. And I did too, but similar to how I feel about Epcot getting changed and things closing over time. I think a lot of the Disneyland locals and people that grew up with that park were like, why is this happening?
I do have a lot of opinions about that. We can get into that when we discuss the differences between the two.
Yes. So then in 2017, that's when we got the model.
Ooh, yes.
And the official name, which was Galaxy's Edge, because it was on the edge of the galaxy. And we learned that it was going to be called Batuu.
Yep.
Which then that was another whole, people were scratching their heads because they're like, wait, why isn't it an existing planet that we all know? Why can't we go to Tatooine? Or, no one would really want to go to Hoth, I don't think, but Dagobah.
Yeah, there's lots of examples, or Coruscant, or anything
that would have
like
made
that.
sense for Florida with all the swampiness.
Dagobah, certainly. But they decided to go with a place that nobody knew.
Yeah. And I got to see into, just peek through the walkway, really. It was not, it didn't really prepare me for anything now that I've been in there. It was a very small glimpse of the land. But that was one of the things that people were asking was, why did the Imagineers choose to create this new place versus something familiar? And their answer has always been that everyone can then create their own story, and that's even, live your adventure. That's what they want you to do. And if, we're just going to jump right into our thoughts on it. I just wanted to say that I actually like that they did it this way. I wasn't super excited. I'll be the first to admit about this land because I grew up with, the movies in the 80s, and I just didn't understand why they were doing it this way. I didn't think it would be a good fit. I didn't think it would be worth going to. And I ate my words when we walked in there for the first time because I really enjoyed the entire environment.
Yeah. Just like the newer set of movies, there's new planets that they go to, and even in the movies like Solo and the newer trilogy, we are being introduced to new worlds there, and so how do we feel about that? And I think, that's basically just part of the story. And so this is essentially just a new chapter, part of the story that wasn't in any of the movies, and the Imagineers are basically able to create a whole new world for us with a new land like this. And they set the scene as it's a place on the edge of the galaxy that we would frequently go to, and there still is the resistance and all of that, and the whole interplay between them and the good guys and the bad guys. So
I think it also really legitimized the animated series, which I haven't seen. Sorry.
We're getting to that. We'll get to that.
But no, I just wanted, because when you get to ride the Millennium Falcon, Hondo, I forget his last name.
I do not know it.
It's something with an O. People are going to be mad, but I'm sorry. I'll look it up afterwards. Christian's trying to sign language here. Anyway, Hondo,
the guy. He's very into a prophet. He's
from either Rebels or Clone Wars. I don't know which one.
Probably Clone Wars.
I should really have looked this up before now.
It's okay. It's tough to know all of it.
Okay, he's from Rebels.
Oh wow.
I've
there you go.
Learned he's from Rebels.
You can't know it all because there's so much.
But all of those animated series got amazing reviews and feedback, and people loved them. They were really well done with the writing. Of course, Dave Filoni is the team behind that with Ashley Eckstein.
Yep.
So right. I think in a way it made us realize, like, oh wait, Star Wars isn't just movies on screen. For those of us that were like not the uber fans that were reading the books and following along all the different storylines over the years, it really said, like, hey, this is all connected.
Yep.
And it may not be what you're super familiar with, but you will be familiar with it. And I think everyone in the land, I know it just opened here, so I think everyone's on like super pumped,
very much
doing their storylines and everything. I hope it continues, because I think it really is a great immersive place to get lost in the land. And it makes me want to go to Galaxy's Edge and forget about the rest of Hollywood Studios, which I love. And that's actually a fun part, because when you leave, they're just like, oh my gosh, wait, the rest of Hollywood Studios is here. Which I think it was a
definitely
great
get lost when you go in there, and that goes for Disneyland too. When you enter these both Batuus, you leave the rest of the park that you're in behind, and you are in Batuu, and there's just so much immersive stuff and things to look at, and it's quite amazing.
A lot of people were saying that it was extremely immersive as a place, but it didn't have like a theme park feel, and some people didn't like that. But I do enjoy that, because I think it's just fun to be transported to a different place. And I think it's weird I said this when we were in the queue, the last two new lands in Walt Disney World have been Pandora, which was very like industrial in the queue to Flight of Passage. And it's a lot of like nature taking back over. So there is a huge nature component to it, but both that queue and the queue for Smugglers Run are so like, gritty and industrial. And I'm like, wow, I hope they do like some fun, princessy thing next, which I don't actually, but it's just weird that the most recent things have been so
true. But Imagineering can really stretch their their know-how with that kind of thing, and they basically can make it seem absolutely real.
Yeah,
and they're very good at that.
The details are
incredible
phenomenal.
Details.
And I mean, we could do 5 hours just on the details of walking around Batuu, but there's just there's, of course, Disney is now famous for doing like the little footprints in the cement and things like that. So there's like droid prints. There's our pal, the Lothcat. There's prints from him, which we'll talk to him later. And there's, gonk droids and different types of footprints everywhere.
Yeah, basically lots of critters, some that we know and some that we don't, and lots of droids and things.
Yeah.
So
And I'm just getting into the footprints thing. In the queue of Smugglers Run, there's like some oil has dripped down from a ship that they're working on, and there's little paw print, they're not paws, they're claws, I guess, bird feet
from porgs.
From porgs. Walking through there, there's a porg nest you can see in Smugglers Run. So, I mean, and that's just, the animal details in here, but they're everywhere, especially they're everywhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing. One of the greatest things. Yes, they do have the attractions. They have all of the shops that we'll talk about, the marketplace and all of those things. But I think my favorite part about Batuu was literally just walking around, and just exploring all of the different details. Not necessarily, we've got to ride Smugglers Run or
right.
Go to that restaurant or see that shop, but just to literally just walk around aimlessly looking at all the fun details, because it's such a gigantic land.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when we went riding Smugglers Run was like the least exciting thing that we did. I mean,
I very much enjoyed it.
I enjoy it.
And I very much enjoyed the queue area, too.
Yes, that's super fun. It's very much like a video game to me.
Okay. Yeah, the ride itself.
When we were the engineers, because we didn't want to deal with the stress of being pilots, like right out there. I don't like people yelling at me, so when I rode it later with Amanda, my friend from Vegan Disney Food, we were both pilots, and there was no one else with us.
So
we
no
were
pressure.
Like the last people, yeah. So that was fun too. So I think if you had a whole group of people, I would definitely be a pilot again, where you didn't have to worry about people yelling.
If it's people that you knew.
Yeah, it really does depend on who you're with. But that's the fun part too, is that every time you ride, it could be a different experience.
That's right.
And there are different sequences that you can get and scenes and things like that. So it is fun. However, the whole rest of Batuu is enough by itself, in my opinion.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know, people wanted more.
And this is just before
Right.
the rise of the resistance
Yes.
is coming, which is such a huge attraction that, I mean, just judging it on how it is now is almost unfair, because almost half of the whole land is not viewable because of that being not open yet. So,
And that will be an e-ticket ride for sure.
I've heard, if anything, it'll be an E+. I mean, there's a few attractions out there that are so amazing. I've heard things like, the Shanghai Pirates of the Caribbean. I would say Flight of Passage is among those, as well as that one in Hong Kong, Disneyland.
Mystic Manor.
Mystic Manor, yes. So it's all
very
along.
different,
All very different, but basically so far ahead technologically, speaking of everything else, that it's almost should deserve its own class.
Yeah, and they recently had, media out there for the grand opening. I was not among them this time. But they got to actually walk into the Rise of the Resistance hangar and see some of the ride. And that same day, Disney released that photo, which it just looks like,
oh my goodness,
a scene from a movie or like a computer animated,
like
but
from
that's
the actual movies.
Really a photo of the ride, which is like crazy
to think about.
And it's gonna have 2 different.
And we're only 3 months away or something like that.
December,
2 or 3 months away. Oh my goodness.
December 5th.
It's December 5th.
Walt's birthday.
And then January 17th in Disneyland.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of Disneyland, you can speak to the subtle differences between the two Batuus.
There's not a lot different, but it is very subtle. I would say one of my absolute favorite things about Batuu at Disneyland is the different transitional areas, especially the one over by Critter Country. There's a long pathway that goes along the rivers of America. Goes underneath the railroad. They actually, as you may remember, a couple years back, had to divert the path of the railroad in order to build this new land, and so they did a whole. Even before they started with building Batuu, they did that, and we actually last time we were there got to ride that and saw. They actually had a left turn on the train, so it actually rises up quite a bit and goes on an elevated platform, and it looks like we got our own little Rancor or some such.
She's not a Rancor monster. She's more
a Tauntaun, yes. Sorry. So we got to see that, the new railroad there. But anyway, this pathway, it goes underneath that railroad, and there's quite a long pathway so they have a lot of time to transition from kind of the old west of Critter Country into kind of a western version of Star Wars, Batuu. And that side is actually the Rise of the Resistance side, just like the entrance here at the studios, which is a much more kind of a harsh transition because they have to go from
Grand Avenue
to that in a much shorter amount of time. So they have the little subway tiles.
I think that is the
which
one,
I like.
Yeah.
But it's just very short.
It is the one thing that is strange that both here and, I mean, I guess in Pandora they have that giant flower that's supposed to be protecting you from being on the moon of Pandora. Yes. They don't even try to do anything. It's just like you're on another planet, kind of.
So on that side, they do have that transition, and then they actually have two entrances on the other side, whereas here at the studios there is only the one that goes to the Toy Story Land. But there are two entrances on that side that do have that kind of that carved-in mountain look, just like they have here. That goes into the area behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Where's the other entrance from? There's Big Thunder Ranch.
Remember those here in the studios? There's in the what's the side with all of the
ships
I don't know.
Stuff?
Yeah, the ships. The Resistance.
The First Order.
The First Order. Sorry, on the First Order side, there are those two giant doors.
Yeah.
One of those doors on that side goes into the land behind Big Thunder Mountain. Right. I actually watched absolutely no videos or did any prep work before I went to Batuu for the first time.
To have like an entrance right into the First Order.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and I can't remember what I was going to say, but so there are three entrances. Those two entrances, which kind of both go behind Big Thunder Mountain on that path between Big Thunder Mountain Railroad that goes into Fantasyland out there. There are two entrances there. And so, they go there. The second entrance is the same one that they have here that goes into Toy Story Land.
Gotcha. Which you haven't been in that way yet,
No, I still have not been on that one because I've only actually had a chance to go to the one here at the studios just the one time.
Well, you can go back now.
That's right. Starting Monday, I can go back.
Kristen and I walked through the Toy Story Land and exit, I guess, because we were leaving that way. We didn't walk in that way. And it's just a pathway. There's nothing really.
Although I heard they did have like a rec for Rex.
Yeah.
Which
we could have seen when we were there. I think that part was open. We just didn't know it was there until afterwards.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, that's how Rex, the pilot from the Star Tours attraction, how he got to Batuu and is now slaving away in Oga's Cantina.
Yes.
But I should go back to the differences at Disneyland. So anyway, there aren't a lot of differences. Pretty much everything else is the same except for those transitional pieces I was telling you about. There are some slight variations as to like this path winds a little bit to the left instead, or just versus going straight. So very minor differences. But the major difference beyond that is the color palette. What I've heard is the colors that they chose, the color patterns that they chose here in Florida are much more, I guess, punchy.
Yeah.
They're much more well-defined. I suppose it could be based on the different skies that we have here versus they have in Southern California. I'm not sure. It could be a different set of Imagineers that worked on that.
Well, true. I think we have a lot more blazing sun for most of the year, too. But I hope that's not the reason, because I hope they're not going to then fade and be the same color. I don't think it's that they're different.
I don't think it's to the point where they're just faded. I think they definitely used a stronger color palette here. And one other thing that I can't take credit for this, but it was a friend of mine who actually works in that field. He noticed there at Disneyland the expansion joints, which is on kind of like the sidewalks that they have out there. You have to have expansion joints, especially out there in California where they have earthquakes. they're easier to identify out there, almost as if they were built there by Imagineers, which kind of shouldn't be. And I hear they're a little bit more disguised here in Florida.
Interesting.
So he has a much keener eye for that kind of detail. I would never have noticed that kind of thing, but he pointed that out to me, and I was like, "Huh, that is very interesting. Something to know." So it's almost like there was a different set of folks that are in the industry that worked on those things, and from what I hear from those that have been to both, they tend to like the one in Florida better.
I will have to check those out. It's something to look for sure. And I'm sure there's a lot more requirements with Cal OSHA than there is.
Yes, that is the strictest state as far as all those regulations go.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I guess we can just, do a quick overview of what actually makes up the land.
Yes.
And this is what they're giving. I don't know how long they're going to be giving these away.
When I went to Disneyland for the expo, there were no maps.
Yeah, but it had been open for 2 months.
It has been open since May.
3 months already, so yeah.
But I saw nothing. Additionally, I should also tell you this. The characters, all of the cast members that are in character, that have a backstory, I really, honestly, did not notice that in California at all. And yet the one time I was in Batuu, here in Florida, everyone was perfectly in character, and it certainly was during a preview. Right. So
it'll be interesting to see if that continues. I hope it does. I mean,
yeah, it really sold you on as far as you are in a different place at a different time, and with a unique set of characters that literally live here, work here, play here. So
Walt Disney World does have a pretty good reputation for cast members that really want to get into it. So not the Disneyland.
And I'm not saying that they don't do that at Disneyland.
Right.
I just personally did not notice it on my couple of trips there.
There was a huge difference in reaction to Oga's from Disneyland to here. A lot of people were not having good times at Oga's. I think you have to pay in advance there. I don't know if that's still
I did not
the
go
case.
into Oga's in Disneyland.
I think there's a different set of locals in both places, and I think maybe there's just different expectations and different park going habits for both, sides.
I would agree.
So that here there's obviously a lot more tourists from out of state, out of the country, etc. But we were also there during a cast member preview and then an annual pass holder preview, which is not the normal experience by any means. Additionally, when I went back with Christian, it was just open at that point. And it was interesting how we were standing in line for Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, which we'll get to. And they have a lot of, end of line things to show you because there's a line for almost everything, but it does move quickly in most cases. But this particular line goes across a stairway down to Savi's workshop. So you have to keep that open, obviously. And there was people coming up constantly to the person that was guarding that area and saying, is this the line for the Millennium Falcon? Where is the Millennium Falcon? So I think that might be why these exist, whether or not people are using them.
Yes, because I would say at Disneyland, where it has been open now for several months, there was the line for the Cantina. It was a pretty long line for that. But other than that, and certainly the line for the ride, Smugglers Run. But there were no lines to get into the restaurant or into that shop or the Rondo's Roasters or anything like that.
So those are some interesting, and obviously it's still very new here, so it'll be fun to see how things progress. And
especially after the next attraction opens up. So.
I do think they have been handling the lines very well. Like I said, there's always someone holding an end of line sign, whether or not people know that's the end of the line, because there's some times when the Smugglers Run line actually crosses in front of Oga's Cantina here.
Oh, wow.
So that's a
That's
bit
a long line.
confusing, yeah, because it goes all the way around the outside, and then
Oh,
they
my
had the
goodness.
queue all in there. But wait times have been good recently, so we'll see how long that lasts. I mean, it just opened, so.
It did just open.
But I was very impressed with how, we were in a pretty long line for Doc Ondars, and we were really only standing there for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So,
That's good.
don't be intimidated by the lines, I guess is my point. If you're going there in the next few weeks or months, if there are lines, there might already have cleared out.
But let's talk about some of these specifically.
Yeah. So when you walk in from Grand Avenue here,
Ooh, yes.
you'll see some ships that I'm not going to name because
I don't
will
know
get
the
it
names.
wrong.
Yes.
And one of them is an X-wing. And that was what I was kicking myself when I did my Instagram story after. I was like, I think this is a Star Speeder. But it wasn't. It was an X-wing. And I was like, oh, I should have known that. And then there's an A-wing. Is that a thing? There's another one that's like the orange one over on the other side.
I don't know the names of
If
ships.
you don't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're fun.
But that's the side, and then to the left of that is where Rise of the Resistance will
Yes.
be.
And I gotta say, even just looking into the queue area for the Rise of the Resistance, and yeah, they had a set of trees kind of blocking your view, but just looking back there, both here in Florida and even more so in California, it looks so intriguing. There's little caves that the queue will go through, and
waterfalls.
there's definitely a waterfall on both coasts there.
Always get us with the waterfalls.
And it's just such a giant area that literally the whole place is going to be completely different once that essentially second half of the land opens up.
Sure.
But anyway, even when we first went in the first time, you were kind of pointing out the tiny little details in the cliffs that they had done. That was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, the backstory, which most people probably know, is that this used to be an outpost many moons ago, and a bustling, trade port, and it kind of was abandoned. But some people still, inhabit it, obviously. And the First Order does have a presence there. But you can see the remnants of former inhabitants. There's like little stairs leading up to somewhere, and lots of. It looks very established, I guess. And the black spires are, of course, they used to have giant trees there, which are now petrified. And the last time I was there, we didn't really. You might have looked at it without me. I don't know. But when you're waiting in line for Oga's, there's a stairway up there.
Yes, I did see
where
that.
I guess Oga lives up there. And then right next to that is a huge spire. And just looking into that spire is like they did a lot of research, you can tell, into like petrified trees. And like,
I believe they did go to the Petrified Forest National Park in Arizona and got a lot of inspiration there.
So, I mean, you could just stand there and look at things like that forever.
Yeah.
It's not annoying to stand in a line there, because at least at this point, because there's so much to look at.
And I will say, once again, going back to kind of comparing the two lands, I will say all of these spires, if you will, because that is kind of what the outpost is named after, they do, in my opinion, look better in Florida and kind of more intriguing and have a different kind of a darker color and very intriguing. I like it.
Yeah, it's really fun.
We'll see.
So then if you keep walking and go, there's kind of a split in the path, and you can go around and eventually end up in the First Order area, or if you go to the left, that's where the marketplace is, which
left.
which I love the marketplace.
There's so much detail there.
Yeah, and I mean, it is kind of crazy that they designed it with no air conditioning, but
it is an open air market, with several stalls, if you will.
Yeah, they're kind of like carved out little. They're not big at all. I mean,
not big. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that area when the land is really full of people. Yeah, that'll be very intriguing.
But they said that they were going to do unique merchandise, and they did. And there's not traditional stuffed animals that you would see anywhere else, plush. There are t-shirts, and there's some carts in the beginning,
in that one cart
as well. However, there's some very unique things, like the little
the handmade toys.
Handmade toys,
in
which
one
look like
stall.
they've been stitched. Very cute to collect.
Right.
And then, of course, they have the creature shop. Is that what it's called? Does it have a name?
It probably does have a name. I
Creature
believe-
stall. And that's where you find this fellow right here.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of cuddly plush like you will find at regular Disney stores.
But I mean, a lot of people, I'll just say we're comparing this to Wizarding World of Harry Potter and Diagon Alley, and everyone is like, well, that was a familiar place, and it was straight from the movies, and that level of detail matched perfectly. I do think this was their answer to a lot of the little pets that they have there. But I think they did a pretty good job with everything. This guy is a loth cat, and he's from the animated series as well. And he
definitely
looks...
a cutie. But they have...
You can pet him and he purrs.
But what's unique about this store is that kind of scattered the merchandise, they also have actual cages, if you will, or kind of displays of actual critters kind of living there.
Yeah, there's a huge cage for a loth cat, and he has a little stuffed porg friend with him, and he's sleeping, and then he moves his tail every now and then.
That's right.
This guy does other things, like he can get mad.
Uh-oh.
I have not seen him in the series, but I had to get him anyway because I just,
But I mean, it's even just intriguing going into that shop, because even if just kind of like looking at all the merchandise, like, ooh, here's another cage. I didn't even realize.
Lots of
they have
creatures.
them. They're all hidden.
And they're all, I think, established creatures that you have seen
probably
in movies or the
I don't
animated
personally
series
know,
or
but
things
that's
like
okay.
that. I'm sure people can name them all.
Yes.
And there's a lot more in Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities
That's right.
as well. But anyway, continuing with this, there's a traditional, like, they have T-shirts and pins and Christmas ornaments and things in one stall.
And there's one where they sell, like, the capes.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes, robes.
Oh, robes.
Is that what they are?
Sorry.
Robes?
I don't know.
They're robes here and at Harry Potter, so it's kind of confusing. Which you can wear in Batuu. You can't wear them in the rest of the park. This is what he does when he's going to shut down. No one in this house likes him except us.
I do.
We pet him all the time, and everyone yells at us for petting him. But he's fun. And then next to that, there's another... Is there another shop after that, or is it just the popcorn place?
The popcorn place. I
could
think
find
there
out.
was a total of 4 actual stalls.
The
2 on each
Toydarian
side.
Toy Maker is the one that has the little handcrafted toys. And there's other things when you walk in, like to the right when you first walk in, there's like a wood carving thing. But you can't actually buy anything there, but it's interesting to look at.
Yeah,
it looks like
it
someone's
looks like
just...
it would be a place that you
And
could get
then
something.
next to that, they're selling more of those little things like Salacious Crumb. I forget what kind of creature he is, but they sell like shoulder ones of those in the creature stall and there.
But what's also unique about this area is what's going on above you. There's so many different...
it really is a marketplace, and people are,
that's
living
definitely
above
where
it.
people
and
live, and you can hear all kinds of sounds of people living up there,
conversations,
creatures.
like radio transmissions, all sorts of things going on.
And so, I mean, so even if you're not there just to kind of look at all of the merchandise that they have, it's still very interesting just to go and look around. And even at the drinking fountain, they have...
Yes.
What do they have there?
Well, there's a little creature that
we'll
appears.
call it a surprise.
Yeah.
So make sure to check
If
that
you
out.
try the water fountain right by the refreshers, which is what they call restrooms, right when you walk in the marketplace, there's a fun little creature that appears there. And then you end up in the popcorn place next to that, which
very unique
we've tried. It's
looking popcorn.
well, I've tried it. I don't think you have.
Nope,
There's
I've not.
blueberry pound cake and chili lime. You
Sounds
either
fun.
like it or you don't like it. It's a fun thing.
But it even looks
Yeah.
kind of like it belongs there.
And then that ends in Ronto Roasters, which people that are meat eaters love that place. I am
It
not
looks
one
like
of them.
I actually have not. I meant to get that that little pocket sandwich when I was at
Oh, yeah.
Disneyland, but I did not get a
People
chance
rave
to.
about it. I wish they
It
had
looks good
a vegan
from
version.
from
so
a
I
meat
would try
eater. It looks good.
And then there's, a droid that's roasting the Rontos.
Which using a what is that?
Pod racing
the pod racing
engine,
which is phenomenal. And
Yeah.
they have a bunch of meats on a
Yeah,
spit
and
that
there's
are
like a room where they house all the
roasting.
creatures that they're gonna cook, which is gross, but they're not real. And then that empties out into little pathway, and you can go down a ramp to the other side where you could have gone.
Yep.
And then next to that is Docking Bay 7
On the left, yes.
on the left, which is the fast casual. Is that the
quick-
correct term now? I think it's called.
I guess. That sounds
Quick
like
service,
a
counter
It
service.
is quick service, but it's kind of quick service plus even more that they've been doing recently.
Where you
like,
get real plates and
Yes.
sporks.
sporks.
Sporks are
Actually,
still there.
I have not tried the
know.
spork.
But it has a great vegan option, which we've
Yeah.
done a video of the. I guess Amanda did a video. Well,
And I even had the chicken, which it definitely looks curious and interesting.
yeah, it's like
but
a
it tasted
rectangle.
phenomenal.
Yeah. So that's a fun place.
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell too much in the details of all of this stuff. We're just kind of doing a basic overview,
Right.
but it is a really great addition.
Yeah, I would eat there
Interesting
again,
and
certainly.
unique counter service option. That I
And it's
think
certainly
is-
neat to look around there too.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything
because
is
it's
so
in a
detailed.
former docking bay, and you can hear things. Well, I guess it's still active because you can hear things like taking off and landing, and
And even just kind of taking a step back, like on the roof of that is just a giant spaceship
Yeah,
as well.
that's
and
landing.
they're
Mhm.
they're
and
all
that
over
looks
the
really
place.
cool at night as well.
Yes,
And then from there to the right hand side is Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities.
and that's a phenomenal place just to browse
I mean,
and look
I
around.
could spend forever in there.
They
and
have so many different. I almost think it's kind of more like a museum. Yes, they do sell things in there, and I guess people are kind of going in there and purchasing things. But I think it's more of a just a place to look around. And they even have the merchant in there.
Doc Ondar.
Oh,
That's him.
that's
He's
Doc
there.
Ondar. Yeah,
He's doing his
kinda there.
calculations and making
He's kind of
transactions.
behind a little cage, kind of looking at things and
Yeah,
every
doing
now and again
trades.
talking and doing trades, as you say. But even just looking up at the ceiling, all the lights, and
There's-
on all the walls, there's just
something
so
from
many
every
things.
Star Wars anything in there. There's, masks and helmets and creatures, and there's a baby Sarlacc,
That's right.
which is, of course, in the desert of Tatooine.
I actually
Jabba the
initially
Hutt.
thought that it was just a model of the Sarlacc
No,
that
it's
we
a real
knew,
baby.
but then I saw it
it's
moving.
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what the funny thing is. I mean, I had seen that kind of, I guess, diagram of what a Sarlacc actually is, and you just see the mouth part with the little tongues and everything, but underneath is this whole other creature that's just like hanging out under the sand.
That's right. See, I was
very
actually looking in it to see if we could see the little Boba Fett, but apparently it's a baby
Aw,
one.
Poor Boba Fett. He's getting his own TV show. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine. But yes.
But so yeah, there's a million things to look at and
Oh my
purchase
goodness.
in there. If you
Yes.
don't want to commit to the Savi's Workshop lightsaber experience,
Which is a lot.
which is a lot, $200.
Oof.
We'll get to that in 1 second.
We
They do
have
have some Legends lightsabers in there, similar to if you don't want to do the wand experience, but you want to like
Yes.
buy Voldemort's wand or Harry Potter's wand or whatever. They have like the whole list of them.
That's at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Yeah, I'm
which
just
is-
saying,
okay.
it's a parallel.
Yes.
So you're not, and they're still like over $100, some of them, but some of them are
yeah, a lot
affordable.
of things are very much priced. But what's funny, I don't know if it's funny, but people are throwing their cash at these things.
I mean, and I did this recently with Christian, which we may have a video coming up soon with that experience. So stay tuned for that. And, I was the first one to say $200. Who's going to spend that on
I think
a lightsaber?
I was the first one to say
Well,
that.
okay. It really is a fun experience. And if you have like a whole group of people and one person is going to get the lightsaber, you don't all have to pay for it. So you can experience it if you have a friend that's doing it.
Yeah, I
or a
believe
family
it's
member.
each person that builds one can bring one guest.
Oh,
right?
okay. I didn't know it was limited to one guest.
It is limited to one guest. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy then.
Yeah.
So if we had everybody with us, we couldn't go in. Never mind what I said.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is a fun.
So I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to see it, but I've heard good things.
You can watch our video.
Okay.
And then it'll be like you're there.
Very good. Stay tuned.
But it really, I don't want to give too much away. There's videos out there, but it really is they made it a very exciting experience. And this is Christian's lightsaber, which it really is heavy. Have you picked this up?
I actually have never touched it before until.
And this is only
wow.
The hilt.
Oh, wow. That is. I know the rest is a light form that pops out of there, and I don't want to turn it on because.
Yeah, you don't want to cut an arm off. But see, it's doing that sound because it's not connected. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it really is, and you have like different choices, so everyone can be unique.
That's right.
It's very cool. So you have that experience, which is downstairs behind Doc Ondar's, and you can make a reservation for that, but you can also do standby, which is what we did, and we only had to wait like one session before us.
Yeah, I heard that when Disneyland initially opened, that was kind of like the tough ticket to get because they only have so many spots per day, and people, they had many annual pass holders with a lot of disposable income, and so it took a long time for them to cycle through them. And I'm not sure if they're still having lines out there for that. I did not notice it when I was there.
I don't think they are at all out there.
That's okay.
So then next to that is, of course, the Droid Depot.
Yes.
And you can,
that's fun.
This section of the land is like a circle, so you can go around the whole thing.
Yeah, we actually, when we first went, ended up going in, and the Droid Depot was kind of like the last thing
There's
that we
a
saw.
few different entrances to the Droid Depot that have little mini shops that you can get different merchandise that you can't get in other areas.
That's right.
And then you can watch people making
their
own droids.
I've not made a droid there myself, and it's just a fun place to go.
Yeah.
They actually have a conveyor belt with just tons of parts. For the droids going there,
fun things to look at.
Yeah, a conveyor belt that's going along the ceiling.
Droids.
Some that you may identify, some that you have seen before, and others that you have not. And I know there's a lot of R2 units, some BB units that we're familiar with that you can make.
Yeah, we might have to take Geo there.
Which I believe is $100.
It's 99 something.
$99.99 plus tax.
Yeah. But, then you get a droid that you can control.
Yes.
So then next to that, if you're going around that way, is a fun little area that there's like a lot of droids there. It's some sort of weird communication. There's a lot of like wires and stuff like that. That's a fun place to sit and just listen also.
Yes, and there's another set of refreshers there.
Yes, there are.
But what's unique about this is that there's, and this goes for the whole land, is that there are characters that come and go.
That's true.
That you might find that'll walk through that area and other areas, including like Kylo Ren, for example.
I haven't seen Kylo Ren, but
I've seen
heard
him
that he
and
exists
a couple of, I don't want to say maybe bumbling stormtroopers who are not quite on.
I do enjoy that they kept the stormtroopers with the ability to talk to people.
That was always my favorite part of the old Star Wars weekends was all the little the communications that the
especially
stormtroopers
when they were on
would
the
have.
top of the
So it's fun that they kept that in a way. They have Kylo Ren who goes by and kind of examines people looking for members of the Resistance or
First Order.
I mean, no, both.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of
doesn't
looking
like the
for
Resistance.
both. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Kind of like trying to identify them, but then he has a couple of stormtrooper guys kind of tagging along who are either kind of encouraging him or kind of bumbling things up a little bit, and he kind of...
I do remember them talking about that a lot when they first introduced the land, that your choices would affect your experience there. I think at this point in time, it's only really in what you're wearing. Like if you're wearing a T-shirt that they can identify as the dark side.
Well, I mean, I don't want to kind of stray too far, but I believe also the app.
The app does have things you can do, but I don't think it's
that, I believe,
yet
no?
at the point where something you do on the app, anyone is going to comment on at this point in time. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
I haven't heard any of that happening. But when you ride the Millennium Falcon, you do have a different ending based on how you performed your tasks.
Okay.
But I think when they initially announced it, they were like, and that's going to follow you around the park, which I think gave me the anxiety because I was like, I don't want to, crash the Falcon and then have to pay for it the rest of my life. But go ahead.
I didn't know if you wanted to continue kind of going around or also talk about the rest of the actual characters that also
there's
Ray
and
Chewbacca and the other girl.
Oh yeah, V.
Whose name I do not know.
She's a spy.
Yes. I have seen the stormtroopers arrest her.
Yes.
And I've later seen her escape from being arrested, which is always fun.
So yeah, that's a fun thing that's constantly going on. She's constantly getting arrested. No. There's a lot always happening. It's not like you have to wait around for something to happen. It just is going on while
and
you're
even if you were just
by.
to like follow that and kind of see what's going on, that's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
It just because they're establishing stories that exist, and
cast members will then comment on the fact that happened, or is watch out for the stormtroopers, and they call this scrap metal so that the stormtroopers don't catch on to what you're doing.
Wink.
And get mad at you. But anyway, it's they do have a lot of interactive elements in there, and you can be a part of the story.
So anyway, back to that area,
our tour.
The second set of refreshers.
When you
and
go
the
through the droid area, then to the left is the milk place. Which does it have a name?
It does have a name. I don't know it.
Milk stand is the name.
Ooh, technical.
Yes.
Now I will tell you, the milk stand is very polarizing. A lot of people like it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people don't.
I don't enjoy it. I don't like blue
now,
or
I will
green.
say that when we first went there, we got a blue milk.
Yes.
You took one sip, and you were done.
Yeah. It tastes like an air freshener to me.
No. This is the blue one.
I know.
Oh, that and also.
Well,
but here's the thing. You said, here, finish this. And I was like, fine, whatever. And I drank it. And I actually liked it.
Yeah,
I thought it was very
fruity.
refreshing.
It's
I
kind
think
of
it's
like
too much.
Fruity Pebbles, but like a bit too much. Because I mean, I wouldn't mind, Fruity Pebbles, but
yeah, I mean, but it was very cool.
Yeah,
it was icy, and I thought delicious, and so I enjoyed. Because in a previous event that we had gone to, they actually sold like a little thing of
Galactic
blue milk,
Nights, but
which
that was
actually
a completely
was
different,
milky.
Yeah,
and so I was afraid that this milk.
They still weren't
going
made
to
from
be,
milk then, but it wasn't like a frozen or attempt at a frozen.
Yeah, this
situation.
is a pure frozen drink, and it was the blue, and I actually liked it. But you have actually since tried the green milk.
I've tried the green, and it's even worse.
I've
than
heard
the blue.
nothing except for that it tastes like what?
Floor cleaner?
Why would anyone want to drink floor cleaner?
I mean, it's not that it's like chemically tasting. It's just like they have very perfumey tastes to them, and I don't care
I've
for
never
either
tasted
one.
the green, and from the sounds of it, I don't want to.
Yeah, and just as many people that love the blue love the green. It's like you said, very
weird.
polarizing.
Yeah, so
but
you go into it. I guess one they say that one is fruitier, and the other one is what?
More fruity? I don't know.
No, I mean, I thought that's what you had initially said, is that one of them was, or no, one was sweeter.
I think the blue one is supposed to be sweeter.
Yeah, and I tend to like sweet things.
Yeah, I don't know. They're both. Oh. Anyway, you have to. What's terrible is that many people have said they're gross, and yet people still have to try them because I have to see for myself.
I mean, yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, and they really get you on that. But
you can also spike it.
Yeah,
they
have
if you
rum
were so
in
inclined.
the blue one and tequila in the green one, which
I do not
think
do
would
that.
be horrible. I can't imagine putting tequila in that floor cleaner. But whatever, there's something for everyone. And then you get to the vast First Order area, which has...
That's right. There's another ship there.
Yeah, I think that's Kylo Ren's
I believe
ship.
it is Kylo Ren's. And at Disneyland, I actually saw them kind of perform a show.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that here.
stage, if you will, in front of the ship, where Kylo Ren came out of the ship and did a whole thing, and that actually led into him being with the 2 stormtroopers, kind of going through the entire land.
I would enjoy watching.
There's a whole entertainment
if it was
package
Adam
that I believe is coming soon, if not already here.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it does have, I've seen people lining up for it, but I don't know that it is organized enough to have times
But
here.
that's also the home to a very curious shop.
Well, you know, people, First Order cargo, if you are into the First Order, you can buy paraphernalia and you can look like a First Order person.
That seems weird to me.
It does, but people want to do it, so, you know. Something for everyone, as I keep saying.
I guess we're not First Order kind of people.
No. Which is funny because, you know, both of my sons grew up wearing like Darth Vader shirts and things like that. And I think Gio may have a Kylo Ren shirt somewhere. But when you think about it, like, they're mass murderers. It's like terrible people, but it's all in fun and games, you know?
Woohoo!
Yeah, Christian has
for the kids.
a Death Eater tattoo, which doesn't mean he's a Death Eater, but he just likes it. You know, it's fun. Something for everyone.
That is correct.
And what's funny is, remember when we went and it was very not crowded, and
yes.
and you were like, wow, it's so desolate here, and I'm like, that's part of the experience. The First Order is very, you know, like, there's nothing there. It's very desolate. It's creating a mood. But it's very crowded now, so
yeah. Okay, I guess we just
happened
happened to be there
that
on
was
a day.
just me misinterpreting things because
it had a good idea, and
it
actually
would make sense if they did do it. But how could they keep it that way?
And because we had actually come around that way before going around the
Yeah.
back end, I had mistakenly thought that those were, or one of those doors was going to lead to.
I mean, they do look like
Toy
they
Story
would go somewhere.
land, but
we had
that's
lost
actually
our
farther
bearings
down.
for a minute.
Yes, which is easy to do because the land is so
Yes.
vast.
So then continuing, you get to Oga's Cantina, which we already described a little bit. The outside is very interesting to look at. Once inside, you haven't been in there.
I've been in Oga's
We walked
Cantina
through
here
to take
in Florida.
photos, and then, but I've been
was
a couple of
fascinating.
times now to
Where
enjoy a
you've
drink
actually
or two.
sat in and enjoyed
And
it.
it really is a super fun experience. And I'm not a bar person. Like, I've been to Trader Sam's here, I think, twice since it's open.
we've
not,
actually been to Trader Sam's more in California than
yeah.
we have here.
That's not to say I don't, you know, enjoy a drink every now and then, but it's a great environment here, and that's what we're
I hear.
hearing here is better than Disneyland for that. It's like a much better experience.
Yeah, I was able to just kind of go in, take a look around, see Rex, and see like some of the creatures that are in glass containers behind the bar.
The little boba balls for you.
That's right. I've learned where the boba balls came from that they actually include in one or more of the drinks.
And then you can also get, you know, souvenir. I don't know if you can see those souvenir porg and yub nub mugs.
I guess there's quite a few drinks that actually come in different vessels, including one in
a beer
teeth.
flight. The beer flight comes in Rancor teeth.
Right, you know, because who wouldn't want to drink a beer from the tooth of a giant monster?
Which they've all lost naturally.
Of course.
They just fall
They just
out and
collect
they pick them up on the floor.
and wash them out and then put
beer
drinks in them.
But anyway, it is a fun experience. It's sometimes they do standby lines. Sometimes you have to only have a reservation. When we were there, the fact that we had a reservation was the only reason we could get in.
Yeah,
So
the time that we were there, it was during a preview when there was not a lot of people. So they actually were they were essentially taking people in and actually
view it.
They didn't just say, okay, go on in. They actually took us in, and they were with us the whole time, just so that they could quickly take us out, so that we could view the place. That's how I got to see it. But I imagine with the lines there, they probably would not be doing that at all for anyone who just wants to look.
No, I did not see that happening. And they do remind you of the rules when you're waiting in line and when you get taken to your table, that don't leave your table because you could lose your spot. You have 45 minutes. You can have 2 drinks per person, and that's it.
Timed and all that, huh?
But yeah, I mean, I think it's enough time. It's a fun experience. There's always, like, when Rex is working. One time he was not working, and it was still fun because we were with, you know, fun people and stuff. But when Rex is working, then the servers all join in and clap along to the songs,
Right.
and it's very...
I mean, so I've seen that kind of interplay with the bartenders at Trader Sam's, so I can only imagine how it would be here too.
Yeah, and the drinks there are pre-done, so they don't take as long to make, so the servers have more time to...
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, they still have to make them, but they don't have to mix them.
Okay.
They're already mixed. So yeah, Oga's is fun, and then that brings us, of course, to the last thing, which
What else is there?
the
Smugglers Run.
yes,
That
Millennium Falcon, which we talked briefly about. I don't want this to, be a 3-hour dissertation on Galaxy's Edge. So, you're gonna ride it if you go there. There are the queue, as we said before, was amazing.
Yes, I very much enjoyed it.
lots
And
of
plus,
fun stuff to
they
look
actually
at.
have a Millennium Falcon there. I know you kind of said that,
Yeah.
but it's hard to miss. Right there, front and
Yes.
center, a giant Millennium Falcon,
And
which
it's
is
a
actually
great-
not a Millennium Falcon. That is the
Millennium
Falcon.
Yes.
And the doors are open or the hatch, I guess, if you will. I've even seen, I think Rey goes in and out of that.
Yeah, she's working on stuff every now and then.
Yeah, Chewbacca, I'm sure, goes in and out of there too because
Yeah.
he's very familiar with that ship. But anyway, yeah, so they have a fun queue that goes through there. If I would only recommend the standby if you've actually already done it, because the standby is very, very. It's nondescript. It's just
mean the
it's
Fast
just a
Pass?
hallway. No,
Or the single rider.
single rider. I'm so sorry. I meant single rider.
I was like, standby has everything.
No, yeah. Sorry. My apologies. Single rider. I would only do that if you've already been on it many times and
Yeah.
you just want to ride the experience. You do actually go through the pre-show, but the trip to get to join up with everyone is very nondescript. So my apologies. I actually do encourage you to use the standby line because
Yes, and
takes you
the wait
through-
times have been pretty
yeah,
reasonable
because when it first opened, you heard rumors of it being hours and hours, but now it's down to what, 45 minutes, 70
Yeah.
or 45 to maybe 80 minutes, which is still, in my opinion,
it's
the queue
totally doable.
is worth it. But then also, that's when you see what's his name, Hondo.
Onaka. I remembered it.
Yes, that's right.
Onaka.
Onaka. Oh,
Something.
that's right.
Hondo Onaka. Anyway,
There you go.
look, it's a
I actually
callback,
remember
and we're
that.
done. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.
But no, basically when you meet up with him, that's actually a very interesting. That's when things really get going
Yeah, that's
In
when they
the-
explain what you're there for and what you're going to be doing.
because you're there in the play and you hear ships kind of roaring above. Actually, the Millennium Falcon
yes.
is there.
Yeah, you see
and-
it land behind you.
and he essentially kind of recruits you to essentially make him a prophet. I don't think we're getting the
Yes.
best end of the deal here.
Well, we get to ride on the Falcon. So
Yeah, I guess.
it's a good trade. And then after that, you go into this other room, and that's when you are assigned your
Well, first you go onto the gangway, that then you enter.
yeah. You get your little
It
card
takes you onto the Millennium Falcon where you get a card.
to tell you what your duties are going to be
There are, I
on the ship.
believe, 3 duties.
There's right
and-
pilot, left pilot, right gunner, left gunner, right engineer, and left engineer. So they each do different things a little
Yes,
bit.
and I'm sure you've probably heard varying opinions upon that kind of thing. It is fun, I'm sure. I actually still have never been right pilot, and there's the people that take you into hyperspace, which
Yes.
is, I'm sure that's
Yeah.
like a dream of many a young Star Wars fan.
Yes. And
But-
if you get with a good group, then, it's going to be a good time,
Yes.
and you won't have to worry about being stressed out.
It is interesting, though, this queue, or I'm sorry, not the queue, the ride itself, because there are duties that you actually have to perform, and how well you perform your duties can affect your ride experience.
Yeah.
But it also can take you away from your enjoyment of the ride, because I'd say probably most of the enjoyment is seeing what is coming out, and the viewpoints is not a typical thing on a typical ride where everything's all around you. It's basically kind of a little bit higher than eye level and above, which is very interesting. And I think you get a different vantage point on whether you are a pilot versus which is the two people up in the front, or a gunner who are in the middle, or the engineer. And so when we first wrote it, we actually chose engineer so we could be farther back and kind of have essentially a better way of seeing it. But during the ride, there's all of these light up panels that you have to do. You have to press these buttons in order to have a better experience.
Yeah.
But doing that kind of takes you.
Well, I was able to do this. Yes. I have very good peripheral vision.
But I imagine there are folks who are really going to focus on making sure that their task is completed, and so they're going to be concentrating on these buttons to make sure that they get their thing done.
Yeah.
Which I think, in my opinion, actually can take away from your enjoyment of what's actually happening.
Well, I mean, that's why they've essentially created a ride that people want to re-ride multiple times so that they can experience different things. And
that is true. One thing I've noticed with being a gunner is you can actually press the button and just keep it pressed.
Yeah, I have heard that. I haven't done the gunner yet, but I have heard that. So yeah, and your ride time is kind of extended or shortened based on if you're doing absolutely terrible and cannot drive this ship at all.
I've also heard, just kind of based on some of the logistics of loading the vehicle versus or who's on the ride with you or that kind of thing, they actually have a way of extending it. I actually at one point had an extended, even after we hyperspaced back, I was in an asteroid area.
Yeah.
For probably a full minute or two of just kind of shooting at this one ship, which I had not heard of anyone else doing. And I guess that's just a way that they have of being able to drag out the experience because of some of the logistics of loading and unloading the vehicles. So,
yes.
So that's interesting. Yeah. Because you might actually get... So it's going to be basically, it's different every time, is the point.
Exactly. And then when you leave, the hallway is either totally fine or things are like sparking. And when Amanda and I rode ourselves, we did not do very well, and things were not
that's right. And I guess
good.
you can see your score, and some of it makes sense and some of it doesn't. And I guess with the app, if you use that, you can you can record that score and basically gain experience for your side, if you will. I have not done that myself either, but that's something for the future.
Yeah, for sure. We should do a video on using the app.
Yeah. I've heard I've heard good things about that.
I think, that's going to wrap it up. We've done the whole circle, and we've talked about our thoughts, which is we love it, and
we do love it.
I think it was a good addition. Certainly there was an initial rumors that they were going to do more, and they could have done more, but I'm totally happy with the way it is now.
Yeah, and I remember when I first talked about the differences with Disneyland and here, and I think I said I was going to, when we first learned of the land and we thought that maybe it was going to take out the Autopia and all that, but then where it ended up being, as I grew up in Southern California, I mean, Disneyland is my home park, and I don't think where they put it really disturbed much of that park at all. I know that they kind of shortened the track a little bit of the water vessels, the Mark Twain in Columbia, but I think the additions that they made along the riverways, a lot of the animals, the wildlife, and certainly the waterfalls and the rocks, is a fine addition. And I think everything that they changed with the railroad out there is wonderful. And as I mentioned, the transition points in between the different lands and Batuu are phenomenal. Basically, that area that they used for that really was not being used. I mean, it was the old location for the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, which they had not been using. But I think it's a fine addition there, and they really essentially didn't take much out other than the goats. Big Thunder Ranch.
Well, they still exist, just not there, I guess.
They're somewhere.
So
but I like it, and I think all that kind of goes along the same lines in the studios. I think it's a fine addition there too. I think it didn't really. I mean, it took away what? The Lights, Motors, Action, Extreme Stunt Show?
Yes,
I think,
and I guess Osborne Lights, but we won't get into that.
That's right, the New York Street.
Oh, well.
Maybe they'll put tons of Christmas lights in Batuu and call it...
People have wondered what they're going to do there.
I don't think they'll do that, because I don't know that they celebrate Christmas out there, but we'll see.
Well, there was a Star Wars Christmas special, so there is precedent. Anyway,
Okay.
on that note, I think that wraps up our tour and discussion of Galaxy's Edge. In our opinion, it's a great place, and it's only going to go up with the addition of Rise of the Resistance, which is going to be an amazing ride.
And we should come back maybe when that is open and the land is full, and it's essentially that's going to be amazing, because essentially half of the area is just not being fully utilized.
Right.
And so that'll be an amazing addition. So
yeah. So thanks for listening.
Yes,
Thanks for watching if you're watching this. And before we leave, I just want to invite everyone to follow us on, every social media there is for the most part. I'm at Zannaland on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.com/Zannaland.
And the website, Zannaland.com.
You are at Otisney.
That's Otisney.
On Twitter and Instagram, and you don't post very much, but maybe we can convince you to do that.
I'd like to. I used to post a lot more back in the day.
Yes,
but
and we're finally getting around to doing things, so maybe you can get around to posting.
I think I probably will.
Subscribe, like, share. Get the word out if you liked listening to us ramble on.
And comments. We would really like to hear your comments.
We'd love to hear feedback
on what you think about Batuu, if you're looking forward to going, if you haven't been, or what your thoughts are on the one at Disneyland versus the one here in Florida.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Suggestions on topics, we're open to all.
Yes.
And a huge thanks to our technical director, producer, editor extraordinaire. There's probably more names for you. Engineer.
Honestly, we would not be able to have done all of this without him.
Yeah. Christian at Tiki Birds. Follow him on
Tiki
Instagram.
Birds with a Z, I believe, right?
Yeah. BIRDZ. I don't know what I was starting to spell there.
And our Tom.
On Twitter and Instagram, and share the love. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Episode 2 is now complete.
Is that 2?
It's 2. We've gone up the waterfall twice.
That's right. Anything's possible at Disneyland.
See ya.
Bye.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's only part of it. I got a big climatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire, and we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
And how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.